Hi everyone, my name is Nitya, and you are at Daybreak Stitchery, which is my Flosstube channel. This is a channel all about cross stitch. It's the end of the month, which is when I usually kind of check in with you and show you what I've been working on during the month. I've got a whole stack of items to show you here. So we're gonna get into it. It's been quite a month. I was at StitchCon this month. I'll talk a little bit about that. I came home sick, tested positive for COVID, and I was kind of in bed for a few days after that, and doing much better. And yeah, it's been a rough couple of weeks, I think, for a lot of us mentally. I had a friend of mine. I have a friend of mine who's a grief counselor, and she had a really lovely thing to say. She said, when you're dealing with stressful times or things that create anxiety in you, it's really important to turn to mindfulness and try to find gratitude and pleasure in even simple things, just things that make you smile or bring you joy. And for me, that's cross stitch. So I've been stitching a lot. It's my garden. We have our very first monarch egg that hatched. So we've been watching the little baby caterpillar, hoping that they'll survive. It's only been day 2 so far, so we will be following that. Almost all of the perennials that I planted last year have come back and are doing really, really well. So that's exciting. Made myself a nice healthy bowl of oatmeal. So just trying to find little moments of pleasure to kind of keep my spirits up and make sure that I'm feeling good and feeling fit and can handle whatever else this world decides to throw at us. So I guess we should get into it because I have lots and lots to show you. And the first piece I'm going to show you, so you won't believe this, I have 4 finishes to show you. They were all, I had not planned on finishing any, well, no, that's not true. I had planned on finishing the first one, but the other 3 were total surprise finishes. So I will have to show you a picture of the first one. I'll throw it up here. I was at StitchCon this month. I went to weekend A, and the best part about it for me, the thing I was looking forward to the most, was that I was going to be road tripping there with my friend, my stitchy friend, Sarah, who I've mentioned before. She's ModCross on Etsy. And I was so looking forward to having a good time with Sarah, and we really did. And I love Sarah. She's an amazing person. She's like one of these people, we all have them, right? These people where you just think for a second, how lucky am I that in this grand universe, our paths crossed and we know each other. I'm so grateful for her. And I wanted to stitch something for her since this was going to be the first time we would see each other in real life. We've, video chatted, and of course we chat all the time on Instagram and everything else, but I really wanted to give her something nice to commemorate our first meeting in person. So I stitched and finished my, my very first Jardin Privé pattern, which is called Friendship is Made. And I was looking for friendship patterns, and I had bought a whole bunch of Jardin Privé patterns back in December. And so this one just seemed perfect. It had 2 friends on it, and some really lovely motifs. There's a little floral motif. I'll try to see if I can put in a picture zoomed in of this corner floral. Just some really lovely motifs. And that huge capital F, that was kind of pretty border. So I chose for the color. So it's on an 18 count Aida. It's a color in cotton. It's Swiss coffee is a color. It's just a pale. It's almost like an off-white or an ecru. It's very, very pale, slightly off-white. 18 count. And the threads I use, so the darker red that you're seeing, it's almost like a burgundy to magenta variegation. It's Gentle Art Cinders, which is a gorgeous, gorgeous color. And Sarah had sent me a little care package back in December, and she had included a skein of cinders. And she said, oh, look, I wanted to send you a skein of one of my favorite colors. And so I thought, okay, well, I'm going to use this to stitch something for her. So I used that. And then for the contrasting color, it's Dried Chilies by Color and Cotton. I have tons of Color and Cotton in my stash because I belonged to a thread club last year. So I'm like slowly making my way through using some of those colors. So I thought those two complemented each other really well. And I just did the pattern calls for two colors anyway. So it was easy to just, I didn't have to make any decisions about what colors to put where. It already comes with two colors charted. So I didn't fully finish it. I kept it on the fabric and I gave it to Sarah that way. I've kind of been, these past couple of gift stitches I've been doing, I haven't been fully finishing. I have such a lack of creativity with fully finishing items. So I just figure I've been giving the gift stitches to people still on the fabric, and that way they can finish it the way they want to, or not finish it, or journal it, and then they can use the extra fabric for smalls or whatever. So that was really fun. And I just loved Sarah. Of course, hanging out with Sarah was like the highlight of my StitchCon trip. As Sarah herself said, we could be going to the recycling center and we'd have ourselves a good time. So it's really nice to know that, I don't know, it's like a weird feeling because I'm in my mid-40s and I never thought I'd be making like a whole new batch of friends at this age in my life. I know that's a weird thing to say, but like when I was in my 30s, I remember thinking to myself, yeah, I like all the people in my life right now and I'm okay with it. And if I don't meet anybody, it's just a funny way to think and live, I guess. But now I'm so grateful for all the stitchy people who I've been meeting and very grateful for having Sarah as a friend. So I was happy to do that stitch for her. Okay, I'm going to grab a few more. I have 3 more finishes to show you. Let me grab those. I'll be right back. Okay, so next finish. I had shown you this, I think last month or maybe the month before. I had pulled this out. This is Lila's Studio. It's a bee sampler. And this has been in my whip since I started it last year maybe. And I had pulled this out from my bins of whips in the basement. It wasn't on, I wasn't thinking I would work on it this year, but then I needed a really bright yellow for another gift stitch I had done, my sunflowers for Carly that I showed you a couple videos ago. And so then it kind of put this back on my radar and I thought, well, this is really actually very small. Why am I not working on this and trying to finish it? So I did. So here's what it looks like full. And then I'll just kind of pan over it here so you can see all the motifs. It's really lovely. It's kind of like a bee Quaker. I think it's called Bee Sampler is the official name, but it's very Quakery. So I just love this one. My favorite motif is probably this large center one because I love those leaves. But there's a lot of interesting things. Like I'm not one to do a lot of backstitch on things, but the backstitched wings on several of these motifs, that really added something surprising. So I was glad I put that in. Now, it's on XJU Designs, light blue violet. I don't know if you're seeing that. It's blue. It's a very, very pale blue violet, like a lilac-y, purpley blue. May not come through exactly in my video. And so let me show you what I did with colors. The called for threads on it are DMC 310. And then that brightest bright yellow right here, that's Gentle Art Sunflower, which is a favorite color. I just love that kind of goldenrod color. I have a project later where I found a Sulky that's that color too. So I'm so excited to be using that. And then this color right here is Mustard Seed, the sort of paler kind of brownish yellow. And something happened so I had only picked up a skein of each. And this is a 32 count fabric. And so I'm using 3 strands over it. I don't usually stitch on 32 count. And when I tried 2 strands, it just wasn't enough coverage for me. So I needed to use 3. So it ate up all of my specialty threads. And I knew I was going to run out. I was really, really close anyway when I picked it up this month. So I thought, well, what am I going to do? So with the last bits of it that were left, I had started working on this side here from this end. I really quick tried, so I put some of those specialty thread, the Gentle Arts called for colors. I finished this motif. I went over to this side and I started to add some of those colors on this side. And I just kind of added wherever I could. And then for all of the rest of the motifs, I actually picked from stash. So this is actually using 2 additional colors that are not called for, but I thought it doesn't look, you can't really tell, right? That I'm using different, like, so for example, these acorns right here, that should have been probably that sunflower color, but instead I had in my stash, a classic Colorworks color that's called Queen Bee, and I thought, well, I've got to use that on a bee sampler. So that's that pale yellow. And then what did I use? I think I used a color in cotton. I had something called Brass Band, but I don't remember where all I used it. So anyway, it was definitely a what would Catherine do kind of moment. Catherine from Neat and Knot by the Sea, she's really, really good at using like whatever materials she has on hand. And I didn't want to go out and buy new skeins of the specialty threads that I knew I'd only be using like halves of. So I dug around in my stash and found just what I needed. So very, very happy with that. I can't wait I think this should be pretty easy to frame because at the thrift store, I end up finding, I haven't picked up any, but I see them all the time. I see longer frames like this. And I see like boards with painted sayings on them and things, and they all have this kind of lengthwise dimensions to them. So I don't think it should be very hard to frame this one. I definitely want it up on my wall. I think it's really pretty. I love all the yellows. I'm a big fan of yellow, so I love all that. So that was a really fun one to do, and can't wait to finish that one. That was Lila's studio, and it's called I'm pretty sure it's called Bee Sampler and not Bee Quaker. Okay, next one is a surprise. This is also a finish, but this is a SAF, a start and finish. This was my stitch that I worked on when I was sick, when I got home from StitchCon sick. I was very careless at StitchCon. So for the past 2 years, I'm a teacher. I work in a school, and I have been like meticulously, painstakingly taking precautions, constant hand washing, masking the whole time, even as students and staff all stopped masking. I kept my mask on the whole time. Lots of hand washing, like sanitizing everything down when using shared spaces, like so painstakingly taking, precautions and steps. And then at StitchCon, my mask was off within like 2 hours. It was reckless and careless. And of course I got sick. And even though I know it affects everybody differently, I've been, vaccinated and boosted and everything. I was out for 3 days. I had chills and flu symptoms, like couldn't sit up. It was not good. And the only thing I can feel grateful for is that, well, 2 things that I can feel grateful for. One, we have a space where I can isolate. So Steve didn't get it, my partner, Steve. And 2, that this didn't happen during the school year. I can't imagine taking that much time off during work for such a reckless decision. So really kicking myself about it. And for any of you who are going to retreats that are coming up, this thing isn't over. So if you want to spare yourself multiple days of being unwell and taking time off from work and all that, mask up. That's what I would do. And like have a bottle of hand sanitizer on your table and sanitize all the time, because what you're doing, you're just in people's faces the whole time. So, and you're picking up items. It's the aerosol. It's the breathing in other people's air. That's really, the mask is the most important, but have the other, take the other precautions too. So what did I stitch? I stitched on something that I actually picked up at Keepsakes. So Keepsakes is the shop in Cincinnati that puts on StitchCon. And so part of the experience, it's a very spendy trip. It's a fun trip, and I loved meeting people. I've told myself that I've been anxious about it because I'm an introvert and I'm putting myself into a very social situation. The socialness was lovely. I had a really good time socially connecting with everyone. It's the spending. I don't have self-control when it comes to cross-stitch spending. So it was not um, it was full of temptations. Let's say I was not able to control myself. So one of the things I picked up, I'll have to, actually, I'm going to pause for a second and get the pattern. I want to show you this. I have this pattern, so I'll show you the picture of it, and then I'll show you my finish. Okay, so this is a project by Little House Needleworks, which I've never stitched on. I've never stitched on anything from them before, and it's called Moonlight. And Sarah first spotted this. So before we drove to StitchCon, we actually stopped at House of Stitches in LaPorte, which I love. I thought that was a fantastic place to go. It's kind of like, if you've never been, it's just one big room, but it's packed full of patterns, just racks everywhere, baskets everywhere. And it gives you the feel kind of like, if you like garage, we like garage sailing. So we like the thrill of kind of looking through old books or magazines. Steve looks at comic books and crafty stuff too. And just the thrill of finding something that's hidden in there. You definitely get that feel. I also appreciated that they had a big sign out front that said something like, please wear your masks and please don't argue with us. So it's very helpful when someone takes a stand on mask wearing. So anyway, Sarah, they had models stitched and hung up all around, and Sarah spotted this one. And I thought it was beautiful too. It's called By the Light of the Moon, it's called Moonlight, and then it says By the Light of the Moon. And I love it because it's a monochromatic piece. And we looked at it, but we didn't pick it up at House of Stitches, but then we both splurged on it at Keepsakes. And then something happened where I think in just the flurry of getting everything, like fabrics checked out and everything, Sarah left behind her copy of Moonlight. So I'd kind of had it in my mind to stitch this really quick and then send her. I'm saving this to send her my copy so that she can have that. So here's what mine looks like. So it says By the Light of the Moon. It's got a really pretty border on the top and bottom. I kind of like that it doesn't have the side borders. That's something different. It's got that lovely, those kind of hills and trees. So it's pretty. It's got some nice little motifs there. That moon was really fun to do. And I used a Sulky on it. So the fabric, it's definitely color and cotton, but I don't remember. I want to say it's maybe peppercorn. It's a 20 count Aida, and I'm using a Sulky, one strand of Sulky on it. I think it is peppercorn. It's definitely color and cotton. It's this kind of dark, very dark taupe color. And the thread I'm using is a Sulky 4040. Looks like this. And it's called Biscuit. And it's really pretty. It's like a cream and almost like a golden yellow, like a golden brown, variegated. And so this is what it looks like stitched up. It kind of seemed like Moonlight to me, so I really enjoyed that. I had spotted a color like this that Sarah picked up. She was kitting up something, and I want to say there's like either a Gentle Art or a Classic Colorworks that's also maybe called Biscuit that has similar tones to this. Now this one I actually hadn't stashed because this was going to be my backup color for Squirrels of Sumatra by Ink Circles. That's one of the patterns I'm working on. And then I ended up going with a variegated Sulky that's slightly darker than this. It has more yellows and browns rather than the creams and yellows. So I had this around. I thought, well, it looks kind of like it could be a good moon color. I think it's a good moon stitching color. So that worked out. I'm not sure what I'm going to do with this yet. Probably frame it, but I just haven't thought much about the finishing of it. It should be easy, I think, probably to frame. So that is Moonlight by Little House Needleworks. Okay, and then next finish, this was also an unexpected finish and also a start and finish this month. This is by Shaded Stitchery. Nuri, I think, is the designer. And it's a quote by Opal Lee, who is considered the grandmother of Juneteenth. She's the one who's advocated for Juneteenth becoming a national holiday. And the quote is, "We can do so much more together rather than apart." And the design, it's a freebie from Shaded Stitchery. And to access freebies, you sign up for the newsletter. So if you go to Instagram, I usually link everything below. I'll list the names of all the patterns I'm stitching on. And then if any, designers or floss tubers I mention, I'll put their names below too. So Shaded Stitchery on Instagram, if you go to their profile, like the description profile at the top and click on the link tree, you can get access to signing up to the newsletter. And I highly recommend it. One, because you get access to the freebies and the freebie library will be growing. This is one of them. But two, the newsletters are really wonderful. Like there's one that came out recently that had a so everyone's stitching, a lot of people are stitching on the new Shaded Stitchery sampler for Juneteenth. There's a whole, it's called This Juneteenth Day, and it's a whole sampler with a lot of symbolism and meaning. And the most recent newsletter explained a lot of the motifs from that sampler. So I think it's going to be a really good newsletter to keep receiving. I didn't use the called for on this. I made it monochromatic. It actually, the original pattern has colors that change, but I stitched it monochromatic. And what I used was, let me see if I can find it here. I used my very first HDF hand-dyed fibers. It's Vicky Clayton silk. It's my very first Vicky Clayton silk. And I have this because, here's what it looks like stitched up. I have this because I met at StitchCon a fellow South Asian stitcher, Veena, who's a really lovely person. And she was giving out, so one of the things you can do at retreats, you can bring table gifts for people at your table. So I'll show mine. I actually have one right here. So this is what I gave people at my table. I had made up floss cards with my picture from my Flosstube channel. And then I tried to find colors that matched the picture. And just put together like a DMC palette that kind of matched that. So it has some sunny colors, some like sunrisey colors in there. So that's what I gave to people at my table. Now, some people give their items not only to the people at their table, but they bring enough for everybody at StitchCon. I was not able to do that. I did bring floss cards. I was giving out floss cards to everybody, but not the skeins of floss would have been too much for me to give to everybody. There are like 300 people who go to StitchCon. But some people do, and Veena was giving out these, so it's the equivalent, it's 8.7 yards, so it's like the equivalent of a DMC skein. I think those are 8.7, right? Let me see. Yeah, that's an 8.7 yard too, but it's silk, and it's bobbinated on these small bobbins here. And it's a mystery color. It doesn't have a color listed. It just says mystery. So it's a green, kind of like a jade green. Very, very pretty. I really enjoyed stitching with HDF, and now I see why. So Veena said, we chatted for a little bit about this, and she swears by HDF silks. Like that's all she stitches in. And I guess Vicky Clayton will, like, if you have something that's where the called for colors are in DMC, there's a conversion in HDF for DMC colors. And if there isn't one, she will make one for you. So I get it. After stitching on this, I get why people stitch with HDF. It's really, really lovely silk. The texture of it is a mix between, so I've tried, so my go-to is usually Silks for You. I really like Silks for You. I like Mrs. Sadas also. Those two seem very similar to me, and they're really, really soft cottons. Like when you take strands of Silks for You and lay it on your fabric, it stays on the fabric. It's soft, just like your linen is, the same level of softness. The opposite end of that for me is something like Overa Spa 103. I've tried that too. Those to me are very smooth and strong, and they don't adhere to, like if I take a strand of 103 and lay it on my fabric, it will start to just pick itself up and curl up. It won't like lay flat on the fabric. It's got its own kind of rigidity and toughness to it. It almost reminds me of like a nylon strand, if you can picture that. Whereas Silks for You more reminds me of maybe like a cotton strand. So this is a mix between the two. It's got the softness of Silks for You, but it's got that rigidity and toughness of the 103 and the smoothness of that 103. So I really enjoyed stitching with it. It did not tangle once, not a single time. Very, very smooth stitching. So I was really happy with that. So this will be I'll remember the time I met another South Asian stitcher when I think of this, because got that thread from Vina. And I really loved stitching on. I think this is great. And this is like a good teaser for this Juneteenth day. I can't wait to start that one too. That one, I will not mess with the colors, because I was reading in the newsletter by Shaded Stitchery that there's a lot of cultural significance to the colors used, and also the motifs themselves. So that's a good one to just stitch with the called for and as planned out, as designed. Okay, so those were my finishes. I have whips to show you, so let me grab those, get those together, and I will be right back. Okay, so whips. So I pulled from my stack of whips behind the couch. This is by Ilona, who is 2x2 stitch art on Etsy. She's a Ukrainian designer, and this is one of the pieces I had picked up and started just to commemorate what's going on there now. That's still going on there now. There was that horrible bombing at the shopping mall and everything. Terrible stuff is still happening there. It's horrible to read about. I wanted to stitch on this because we actually went back to our old neighborhood, which we used to live in Ukrainian Village in Chicago. And we wanted to visit the art museum there. It had been a long time since we had been. And they have an exhibit going on that's really interesting. I don't know if I still have, excuse me, I probably still have pictures. I'll see if I can put up a picture or two of some of the pieces that I saw. But in the main room that they have at the art museum, Ukrainian art museum, they've got sort of a combo exhibit of Ukrainian artists, like artwork by Ukrainian artists, put up all over. And next to them, they've got local, like kids, just local Ukrainians who've also created messages, pieces of artwork, things that they want to say related to what's going on. So it's a kind of juxtaposing professional artists talking about being Ukrainian, and then, everyday residents of the neighborhood. So that was really interesting to see. A lot of artwork by kids, a lot of calls for peace, a lot of emotions in that artwork. And when I came home, I wanted to stitch a little bit on this. So I am using Sulky on this, and this is a 40 count barnwood by Picture This Plus. And I'm using these two colors of the Ukrainian flag. And the colors are, do I have them here? I don't have them here, but I think I can point them out. In the center here, this yellow is Goldenrod, which is Sulky 1024. The brighter yellow here is Mimosa Yellow. That's Sulky 1187. I don't know if you'll really be able to see the difference, but there are actually two blues here. So all along the outer edge is a slightly paler blue. That's actually royal, royal blue. It's 1076. And then the brighter blue that I'm using, like in here, that's dark sapphire. It's 1253. So this is actually a larger, so 2x2 Stitch Art is the designer, and her patterns are really, really large. They're like, let's say 250 to 300, and sometimes even larger by 250, 300 larger. So I'm just doing one part, like a central part of it. So there's actually a lot more. There's several more layers of borders that I could do, but I think I'm going to stop here just to have kind of a quicker finish. And then I'm not sure what I'm going to do with this. I could make it into a pillow. We have one of our old neighbors who's Ukrainian, who Steve still has drinks with. So I was thinking of making it into maybe a little pillow to give to them. Or we'll just put it up. I'm not sure yet how, eventually what we'll do. But I'm about halfway done. So I hope to pick that up and keep working on that one. So that, the title of this, so 2x2 Stitch Art doesn't really use titles for their patterns. They use search terms. So it's called, when you download the file, it's called Sampler 56. But that won't be what it's called in the title. So I'm not really sure what it's called. You just have to go on their page and look. And if I can find the link to it, I'll link directly to it below. But they have a lot of patterns that are like this, like symmetrical motifs with kind of geometric shapes all around them. So this is on 40 count, which has kind of become my sweet spot for using Sulky. I like you're seeing that's where I had originally started Squirrels of Sumatra on this. So I kept the same floss color, but it's on a different fabric. But 1/1 with Sulky looks pretty good. It's really good coverage on this 40 count. So I'm happy with that. And hoping, I think maybe I could try to finish this next month because it really didn't. I only worked on it one evening and I came like this whole part down here I was able to do. It stitches up really fast. Okay. Next one is a whip. So StitchCon. One of the things I wanted to, I didn't have, there were some things I knew I wasn't going to be interested in doing, and there were other things that I really, really wanted to do. So for example, they do a smalls exchange. I didn't really get myself motivated to do that. The people who did it enjoyed it and loved what they gave and received, but I didn't really participate in that. And I'm not much of a late night person, so I knew I wasn't going to do any of the late night stitching rooms. But one thing I really wanted to do is I wanted to take whips of patterns that were created by designers who were going to be at StitchCon, because I thought it'd be cool to take my whip and go like have a conversation with those designers. So that's what I did. So the first one, of course, is Sarah's pattern. My stitchy friend Sarah, who I traveled with, is a designer. And so I, of course, took her pattern and I actually worked on it a little bit too. So this is Marigold. She's working on Pansy right now, which is also turning out so beautiful. I can't wait. It's got beautiful like creams and purples in it, purpley pinks. That'll be lovely too. I love all these bright colors of the Marigold. She starts with a photograph and then she slowly works at the gradients in the colors to make the pattern. And I worked on this part up here. So I added this orange and kind of red section up here. And that was really, really fun. This is another one I feel like if I take a week, maybe I could probably finish this. It stitches up super fast. I mean, I only stitched for maybe a couple hours one evening and I got this whole part done here. It works up really fast. It's a PDF pattern, Sarah's ModCross on Etsy. So I use a PDF pattern and then I use the built-in highlighting tools within the PDF like app program. And I just I box up stitches as I stitch them and use that highlight feature. So that's how I've been stitching on these. I love this pattern because it's going to give you like the photographic quality of a full coverage stitch without being an enormous full coverage stitch. So it's a really good way to get kind of tiptoe into doing full coverage stitching. And it looks great. I mean, look at how it's meant to be, since it's based on a photo, it's meant to have kind of a photographic quality. So pretty excited about that. The fabric is a 32 count woodland by Picture This Plus, beautiful dark green. I actually have another piece of this because I'm waiting for Pansy to come out and I want to have them next to each other. So I'm going to do that on the same fabric. I'm using the called for DMC. I want to say there are maybe 7 or 8 colors. So it's very manageable. I mean, it's not like, people who do Hades and these big full coverage pieces where you have like 200 different colors. This is a very manageable full coverage piece. So yeah, I was happy to take that and stitch on it with her, with Sarah there. That was a nice thing to be able to do. Okay, so then the next 3, I'm just going to show you really quick the other patterns that I took to like chat with designers, but I didn't actually stitch on these this month. So Jan Hicks was there, and she's just a lovely person. She was a really wonderful person. And this was so funny because what happened was we had lovely table mates at StitchCon. Sarah and I, we didn't go early. I think a lot of people go early and wait in the long line, and then, they have more choices of tables, I guess. We had gone to a flea market in the morning and then to a craft resale shop. So we were just doing our own thing for a while, and then we kind of rolled in the afternoon. We had lunch and then rolled in. And so the room was almost filled with people. There were a few spaces, but we kind of wandered along the side for a bit. And then our table mate, Julia, who we didn't know beforehand, she saw us standing there and she flagged us over. She's like, come on, we got 2 seats here. And it ended up being a really lovely table to be at. Julia was wonderful. Vicky and Annie and Patty, we met some really nice people. I put a picture up on Instagram. I'll see if I can grab that and put a picture of us up here. But it was so funny. Julia and I ended up enjoying stitching some of the same things. So what happened was we were chatting. We chatted the whole time about cross stitch. We did so much cross stitch chat. It was really, really nice to do that. And at one point, Julia says, can I ask you all an opinion about some fabric and floss combination? And we said, yeah, sure. And she said, she pulled out Oxide by Mrs. Sadus. And I thought, oh my gosh, she's probably stitching Jan Hicks Narnia, because that's, it's not a called for, but Jan herself is using that floss on her own pattern to stitch a model of her own pattern. So while she was pulling out her fabric, Julia was pulling out her fabric. She's like, I'm thinking of stitching this Jan Hicks pattern, and I don't know what you think about this fabric combo. I reached into my bag and I pulled out mine. And we both just kind of stared at each other. She's like, you're stitching on it? I said, yes. So then we both got up at the same time. She said, well, I know Jan Hicks, so let's go over and chat with her right now. So I was able to take this over and show her. And so this is Narnia. And it's called Narnia because this pattern is based on a wood carving that's in a wardrobe that Jan saw, I think, when she was antiquing or something. So that's where the Narnia reference comes from. And it's Mrs. Sadus Oxide is the color, and it's really pretty. It variegates from yellow to green. It's got some beautiful shades there. Jan was really lovely to talk to. And she said, well, while you're here, let me show you something. And she pulled out a new pattern she was working on, like model stitching. And we got to talk about that. She asked us questions about what we thought about the different colors she was using. It was so cool. She was a really, really lovely person to meet with. So that was fun. I was glad. I would recommend this to anybody. If you're going to a retreat and if you happen to have any whips of people who are designers there, I think it's a really fun. I really enjoyed meeting with designers and like having a piece to talk about with them. That was Narnia by Jan Hicks. I also met Liz Matthews, who, you know how sweet she comes across in her Flosstube? That's very genuine. She's a very sweet person. And again, Julia and I, like the next day, we had both, independent of each other, ended up picking up the same Liz Matthews pattern for the same small that we wanted to stitch on. And then we ended up even going in on fabric together so that we both could stitch it. So we got to chat with Liz Matthews. She was wonderful. And the pattern I took to show her was After the Rain. And this is on, I haven't been telling you, I don't know what fabric this is that I stitched Narnia on. I want to say it's an Access Commodities, but I don't remember. I'm not 100% sure on that one. This one is Chinchilla by Mystic Fabrics, and it's an 18 count. And I'm using different DMCs, all different shades of DMCs that are purples and blues. purples, pinks, and blues. And so this is the pattern. It's just a whole lot of rainbows. So I'm not sure what to do with this yet. I don't know if I will stitch all the rainbows or just make it smaller, like a smaller grid, because it really looks like you can kind of adapt it however you want. Like maybe I'll do a 4x4. I don't know. I'm not sure yet what I'm going to do. Some of the rainbows have these little spots around them, which I kind of like. So maybe I will keep it 5x5. I'm not sure. I'm not sure what I'll do yet. But it's the motifs look small, but they're not quick to stitch. They actually take some time to stitch. But they look I really like I'm just kind of choosing random color. I have a set of like maybe 12 colors, and I'm just picking up 3 at random and stitching them each time. So that was fun. And then the fourth designer, because I'm counting Sarah as my first, was Sarah at Notorious Needle and her mom, Bridget. And they have a Flosstube. They're just so delightful. They were really lovely. I chatted with them several times over the weekend. They were really, really lovely people. And Sarah designed the Pro Choice sal. So I took this to show. And Sarah had on the brag tape. So one of the things at StitchCon is on the outer edges, they have tables set up where everybody brings finished items to brag about, to show off. They're called the brag tables. So Sarah had brought her last sal to put up there too, which I don't remember what it's called, but it's the one that has the different sayings on it, like kindness matters, science is real, and all that. And so it was fun to take this and talk it over with Sarah and her mom, Bridget. They were both delightful. Their latest Flosstube, they have a really interesting chat. They're in their latest Flosstube, they talk about StitchCon and items that they picked up. And then they have a really interesting discussion on needles. They're both in the middle of trying out different needles. So if you want to hear some needle talk, that's a good channel to check out. I really love some floss tubes with like pairs of people. There are a few that are kind of my go-tos. I really like Sarah and her mom, Bridget. They have a nice kind of back and forth. I love Catherine and Victoria, Neat and Knot by the Sea. And then, of course, Sunshine Stitcher. So there's some pairs and groups that just have like a nice flow. And Bridget and Sarah have a nice flow to their conversation. I really enjoy watching their floss tube. Okay, and then what did I actually stitch on? I actually stitched on a lot at StitchCon because I'm not a social butterfly. So I sat at my table and I talked to my table mates and I talked to Sarah, and I wasn't one to just be up and walking around and talking all the time. I stitched actually a lot. So I took my 2 Whip Go pieces that were called up, and I thought that would be a good place to put in some stitches there. So this is by Owl Forest. It's called the Acorn Sampler. And the part that I worked on here, let me hold it back so you can kind of see the larger picture. It's just a lot of acorns, a lot of leaves and acorns. This is on Jade by Picture This Plus. It's 18 count Jade. And the thread is Threadworks. Ooh. Well, the color is called Marooned, but I don't remember the code. It's a 5-digit code, and I don't remember what it is. But it's Threadworks Marooned. It's a really beautiful taupe, gray, and maroon, variegated. So the section that I worked on was down here. It's all these borders. This was actually a really good piece to take to StitchCon because I had my paper copy and a highlighter, and it was really easy to do something with very even patterns. So those borders worked out great. So like all of this down here was StitchCon stitching. So this got called up again this month, so I may be doing some more work on this one. I really want to chip away. Part of me does not want to do my Whip Go picks for this month because it was this one, and then it was my Turkish Delight, which I really should work on because I'm getting closer and closer to a finish on that one, and that would be really cool because it would be my first Whip Go finish of the year. But my Modern Folk Embroidery, the 2021 Stitch Along Fruits of Plenty, that's kind of been calling me, and it hasn't been called up on Whip Go for a while, so I'm toying around with working more on that one. We will see. Okay, the other whip that I took and worked on at StitchCon was the Bookcase by Galliana Designs. And the section that I worked on was this bar right here. So it's coming along. This is kind of slow going. It's on a 20 count onyx by Color and Cotton. And I'm using one strand of DMC color variations. It's something meadow. I never remember to look up the color, but if you look up DMC color variations and meadow, you'll see the color. So it'll be like a 440 something, 4,000 something. It's a really pretty variegated. You can kind of, I think you're seeing the variegation here. Blue, cream, and like a pale green. I really like how this looks. This looks good every time. I don't know why. I'm just not drawn to going back to it over and over again. I have no idea why. Gotta chip away at it. The lighting situation, by the way, at StitchCon was really good. I took a portable lamp with me and I didn't need to use it at all. The lighting in the room was just fine. I saw some people taking their lamps and using their own lamps, but I never even took mine out. I didn't need it. Okay. I have 2 more whips to show you. Actually, I'm going to take a water break. I've been coughing a little bit, dry throat. I'll be right back. Okay. So this next whip, I'm so super excited to show you because this has been kind of my focus piece for this month. This is what I've been working on for Stitch for Pride, which is the hashtag started by Dee at Dee's 20 Stitches. And I've been doing some of the prompts, not all of the prompts, but they've been really fascinating to go through. So Dee at Dee's 20 Stitches very generously put together these daily prompts for learning and stitching. And they've been really, really good. And a lot of times, like if there's an article or a video link, it will have links to other things. So you just end up reading and getting a lot of information. So many good things. I watched a really good film. I'm reading a really excellent book. This On Earth We're Briefly Gorgeous. I love this book. So just trying to diversify the content I take in, but also the stitching I do. So my focus piece for stitching on Stitch for Pride has been Magical Carpet Menagerie by Miriam, who is MarroomyCrafts. Sorry, everybody. This coughing. I love this so much. So I finished 3 of the 4 animals. So this is a series. It's eventually going to be a series of 9 animals. I think there are 7 out right now. And let's see, we've got Lanky Camel up top. Next to that is Hazy Hen. And then down below is Wonky Cat. And then I didn't quite finish Funky Peacock. So I decided to stitch them all together in one piece. Well, 4. I picked the 4 that were out at the time that I started this. And I put them on one piece. And I centered them, like I have them all equidistant from the center, but they all have different dimensions. So they're going to go out in different, kind of different directions, which I actually really, really love. And I think what I'm going to do, I couldn't decide. So there are additional animals coming out, like there's one that came out just a couple days ago. It's Prickly Ram, which might be my favorite. I'll try to put a picture up here. I just love that one. And originally I was thinking, well, my fabric is large enough. Maybe I can add on additional critters off to the sides. But now I'm wondering, I kind of like how, now that I'm holding it up, I kind of like how it looks with just 4. So I might just do another set of 4. I don't know. I don't know what I'm going to do yet with the other the other critters. So what am I using? This fabric, I've forgotten. It's a Fiber on a Whim fabric. And it's either wheat or brown sugar. Maybe wheat. Because it's got a little bit of green in it. It's a really pretty variegation, isn't it? I mean, for an 18 count Ada, this is really pretty variegation. You don't always see kind of the clouds, the variegated clouds on Ada. And then the silk is PR 132. It's Silks for You. It's a variegated teal. I don't know if you'll get to see the variegation on it. Let me see if I can hold up. My lighting is not going to show you, I think. It doesn't look like it here, but it has a variegated, it's like a kind of cloudy bluish teal and a brighter teal, more jewel toned. So that's what that looks like. I love it so, so much. I can't wait to finish Funky Peacock, and then I'll make a decision about whether to go. I mean, there's a lot of fabric. Maybe I will go ahead and add additional critters off to the sides. Miriam's plan is to do a set of 9 total animals in the Magical Carpet Menagerie, and then offer like a layout and some borders too to stitch them together. One of the things I love about all of these is these kind of loose motifs. So like this right here. I love the chicks in this one, but then check out like this motif right here. In Wonky Cat, there's like these geometric kind of patterns here. I don't remember what's in Funky Peacock, but there's always some kind of like a loose, there's the animal and then some kind of like loose motif. I love that because I love stitching Quakers and I love the individual motifs in Quakers. And so so these are inspired by Gabe patterns in textiles from Iran. And so it's different types of motifs. It's something new. So I love that. They're individual and small, but I love just seeing something different. Like when you stitch enough Quakers, the motifs start to get familiar, right? Like surely I have a lot of Quaker patterns and they probably all draw from like the same library. So it's just neat to see something different. And Miriam's working on a sampler, which I'm so excited for because I think it'll be more of like this. I'm hoping it'll be more of these kinds of just these individual, something new, something different all put together. So that is called the Magical Carpet Menagerie, and Miriam goes by MarroomyCrafts on Instagram, and I'll include that Instagram name in the list below. And then if you click on Miriam's link tree, she's currently selling patterns on Gumroad, so you'll be able to download PDFs of all these patterns. So Funky Peacock is the one I still have to finish. I really wanted to finish Funky Peacock this month too, but I got the bird done. Miriam has a Flosstube now. There's a MarroomyCrafts Flosstube, which is really interesting. You can see Miriam is really good about finishing, like sticking with just a couple of projects and finishing ones before starting other ones. So she's got a lot of nice whips, but also finishes that she shows. And then she provides some insights into her designs too. And I think she did even like an extra video recently, which I still need to watch on Prickly Ram on the new pattern that came out. So that was really lovely. Her voice is very calming, and that's a really good Flosstube to start watching. Okay, my last whip, and then I have some new starts I'll show you. I picked up Kain Kapal. So Kain Kapal is a pattern by JavaCrossStitch on Etsy. It is an Indonesian ship cloth. Kain Kapal means ship cloth. And it's based on a traditional Kain Kapal, which would have been a large woven piece that represented a ship with people and animals. And it's supposed to represent, like the voyage of the spirit after death. So the designer for JavaCrossStitch is Era. Era is from the Lampung province in Indonesia, which is where this type of Kain Kapal weaving started. So she knows about it. She's grown up around it. And she decided to create not quite a reproduction because she's not weaving, she's cross-stitching. But via cross-stitch, she's creating a reproduction of a traditional textile. So I think it's so cool. I love stitching on a cultural pattern that has cultural insights from the person who's from there. You're going to recognize this probably because you're probably familiar with the Ship of Life patterns by Ink Circles. And those are, her inspiration for those patterns was also Indonesian ship cloths. But Ink Circles always takes cultural motifs, but then heavily changes them. But she puts her own stamp on them. So this is a reproduction, and they're pretty too, but this is a little bit more authentic, especially for something that has spiritual significance. I feel like it was the right decision to stitch on a pattern that's by someone from the culture. So the fabric, this I think is Fibrano and brown sugar. Maybe this is the brown sugar and the other one was wheat. And I'm using the called for DMC, which is different blues. Like there's 336 here, 3750. The red is 3777. So I'm just using, it's the called for blues, DMC blues that I'm using. And I started this as a stitch along, and anyone can still join in. I split the pattern up into 12 parts so that we could stitch on a part every month. I'm behind. This top blue border was January. This red and blue here was February. March was the side border. So then April, May, and June were supposed to be the top of the ship here. So I still have little bits to do in here. I haven't complete. Really, this top part should be completed if I'm keeping up with it. And then we're going to come down here. July, August, September is the bottom of the ship. October, there's going to be an identical border on the side. That's October. And then 2 more borders on the bottom, November and December. This thing is so tiny. Look at my hand. It's like the length of my hand, basically. It's a really, really small pattern. When you download the pattern, I'll probably link it below. It's Kain Kapal 4 is the name of the pattern. And when you download it, it's got so many symbols all over it. It looks like it's going to be really challenging to do. It is so, so easy to do. So, so easy to do. I would go with a linen if you're going to join in on this because there's some fractional stitching. Although people are doing it on Aida. You can do fractional stitching on Aida too. Really enjoying it. It's very satisfying. Each little motif, it's I think kind of like with Miriam's magical carpet menagerie. It's like the unfamiliarity of the motifs makes it very satisfying. Like you're stitching up something and you don't quite know how it's going to turn out or what it's going to look like. I mean, you have the picture, of course, but it's just something new and different. There's some little people there. There's supposed to be some birds and also some sea life and different little motifs there. The borders are really beautiful. So I've just been chipping away at that each month. And I'm pretty sure now there's a Kain Kapal 3, which is mostly reds that Era from JavaCrossStitch also designed. And I think I want to do that as next year's stitch along too. Have both of them together. They're both really beautiful. Those borders, I just love them. I'll link the information for this below in case you want to join us. It's not too late, and you don't have to follow the same, cross stitches, whatever you want to make of it. So you don't have to follow the same order that we're doing it in. Like someone is joining us from Indonesia, actually, who's a center starter. So she actually started in the middle of the ship, and she's working her way out. So you do it however you want to do it. The important thing is to stitch something interesting and new and give attention to a designer who maybe everybody doesn't know about. Okay, I have, as usual, some new starts. So let me just get that all together and then I'm going to be right back. Okay, as usual, I've started a few new things. So continuing with Stitch for Pride, I started Move Forward in Love. And this is the new pattern by Modern Folk Embroidery. And I didn't get very far on it. I was spending most of the month on my magical carpet menagerie. But I do like that fill-in was very satisfying to do. So there's going to be a huge motif in the center with a, rainbow flag. And then these kinds of motifs all around. I don't have a printout of it. I'll see if I can surely you've seen this pattern. A lot of people are stitching on this now, but I'll try to put a pattern up somewhere, a picture of it somewhere. This is on, it's an 18 count Ada. I think it's cranberry. Yes, it's cranberry sauce by Fortnite Fabrics. And then I'm using colors from Stash. I'm not using the called for DMC. I don't have all the DMC, so I'm using Color and Cotton. I've kitted it up with colors from my Color and Cotton stash. So I really enjoy it. It's been really nice to stitch on. I love this. There's some really beautiful colors here, like the red. I don't know if you'll see. That red is Tomato by Color and Cotton. Look at it. Can you see a little bit of variegation in it? It's really, really pretty. And then the green is one of my new favorite greens now. Let me get in closer and see if you can get the vibrancy of it. It's Sweet Basil by Color and Cotton. I just love it. My usual green that I love is DMC 890. But this is, I think that's like a dark avocado. This has like a jewel toned brightness to it. That's just so pretty. So that's been fun, using up some of the colors from Stash to stitch on this. So I'll come back to that. I didn't get to do all the prompts from Dee's set of learning prompts, so I want to come back to some of those this month and keep working on them. Okay, next one. So one of the things I wanted to do while excuse me, while shopping at StitchCon was I wanted to kit up this one, Green Energy. It's by Petal Pusher. And it's really pretty. It's just a pretty houseplant. We're not very good with houseplants, so my houseplants will have to be stitched rather than actual plants. They don't survive in our home. And this is one of those starts where I'm almost embarrassed to show it to you because it's like not anything. I just put in a few leaves from that top border at the top. It's just a few leaves from that. I've barely done anything. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's 7 colors of gentle art. They're pretty. Different greens and like a kind of bronzy gold color. So not much going on there yet. We will see how that progresses. Okay, the next two I'm super excited about. These I started on a whim and I love them. I'm using more Sulky on these. So this one is my start on Birds from Bernhard's Books by Modern Folk Embroidery. And this is the fundraiser one that Caroline from Off the Grid Needle Arts started for the Brain Aneurysm Foundation. So that's what it looks like so far. So I am doing this on a 40 count. Picture this plus. It's truffle is the color. It's really pretty variegated. Let me hold it up and show you. It's a variegated pink. It looks like marble. It's like if you think of pink marble, that's what this looks like. And I'm using a Sulky. Let me look up the color. Hold on. Oh, it's 4093. It's blackberry. My light is gone now. I don't know if you really see the colors. It's sort of an odd mix of teal. I stitch with a lot of teal. Teal, taupe, and like a mauve, like a rosy mauve color. There you go. Maybe you'll see it there. Very pretty variegated color. Let me see if I can hold up the skein or the spool. Is this it? Yeah, 4093. So that's what it looks like on the spool. And then here again is what it looks like stitched up. I love this one. This appeals to me in the same way that the Fruits of Plenty, the last year's Modern Folk Embroidery Stitch Along, appeals to me because it's a lot. It's like almost all negative stitching. And I love the look of that. And I think I've chosen the right color thread and fabric combo, like on my first go, to make it look good. Because on my Fruits of Plenty, if you haven't seen my old videos, I have started and restarted that project so many times. I couldn't get the color combo right to really show off the negative stitching, but I think on this one it's good. So that one's been really fun to do, and it stitches up pretty quick. Actually, like about half of this square, I did just a couple hours one night when I was on a stitch and chat with Michelle G. Here we go. That's a nice lighting. So that'll be fun to keep going. I'll try to put a picture up of what it looks like. It's got like I want to say it's got a vase of flowers and some birds in the middle, but it's got this negative stitching border all around otherwise. That's been really fun to do. It's 40 count, so that's kind of, I mean, it has not been difficult to do all that fill-in stitching with one strand of Sulky. It's not super crowded. It's a little, sometimes with a few stitches, sometimes I have to kind of wiggle my needle in there to make sure it gets in there, but for the most part, it's pretty easy to guide the needle through. So that's called Birds for Bernhard's books, and you have to, it's only available on Modern Folk Embroidery, so you have to download it from their site, and then the part of the proceeds go to the Brain Aneurysm Foundation. Yeah, so that's that. And I think Jacob or somebody mentioned that that was going to be on some kind of rotating schedule. So Caroline's partner is doing the marathon, or maybe he's already done the marathon for Brain Aneurysm Foundation. So once that's done, once that fundraiser is done, I think that piece is going to continue to be a fundraiser piece just for other the cause will change, but it'll continue to be donated. I think that's, I feel like that's what I heard. I think that's what I heard. Okay, one more new start to show you. So I mentioned that Sarah and I went to House of Stitches and I just loved it. And one of the things I just found myself spending a lot of time at the rack that had patterns by the work basket, which I don't know if they still make patterns. Is there a copyright on this? 2008. So these two patterns that I picked up are from 2008. So I don't know if they still make patterns or not. It says it's Mary Olson and Candy Scott, the work basket. I've heard of the work basket before, but I've never seen like patterns in real life by them. So I picked up two. I just couldn't resist. They just look so charming. So one is Rabbit Roundel, and it's this rabbit with these interesting little borders going all around. And then one is Swan Roundel. This kind of unique looking swan. I like those like kind of curly hearts, those large hearts, and then those interesting borders all around it. So I picked them up together because they are the same dimensions. They're both 108 by 108. So I thought, okay, great. I'm going to stitch them together on the same piece. I'm going to stitch them side by side. So I have been wanting to use bright colors just because cross stitch is kind of a color therapy for me too. I love looking at colors. It's what, like my garden does that for me too. Like we have a lot of flowers coming up now. So it's like an immediate mood booster. So I knew I wanted to stitch on a dark fabric with bright colors. So are you ready for this? So this is Mystic. The fabric is Mystic by Picture This Plus. It's 18 count Ada. And the thread is Sulky. And look at that, it's pretty good coverage for an 18 count. Some 18 count, the darker color 18 counts work really great with one strand of Sulky. The lighter color 18 counts show a lot of fabric through. So this one, I'm pretty happy with the coverage. And I'm using 4061 Sulky, which is called Poppy. And it's got beautiful, to me, it looks like the shades of tulips. It's got like beautiful tulip shades, sort of pinks, corals, red. I guess those are poppy colors too. So this has been a really enjoyable stitch. I just highlighted, I made a copy and I've been highlighting to keep track of stitches. Really pretty variegation. I'll show you up close here. Isn't that a gorgeous color? Sulky has really beautiful variegated threads. They're called blendables. Their line of variegated threads is called blendables. And their variegated thread numbers usually start in the 4000s, kind of like with DMC, right? The color variations tend to be in the 4000s with Sulky too. So this is 4061. Their Sulky solid colors tend to be in the 1000s. So like, for example, I have this dark green Sulky. I'm not sure what name it is. They don't put names on their spools. They only put numbers. This is 1271, but see, it's in the thousands. The solid colors are numbered in the thousands, and they're they call them blendables. Their blendables line is in the 4000s. 4061 is this one. So I'll show you again. Isn't that just lovely? Really beautiful. And I think part of what, if you notice, part of what might have appealed to me with these two patterns is that, once again, it's negative stitching. So you're getting a lot of floss color, a lot of fill-in stitching. And see, this is the pattern. So you're stitching around the rabbit, and even like that paisley up top here, that's mostly filled in. I don't know, there's something very, that border all around is mostly filled in. Something very appealing about that. They offer up some suggestions on how to make smalls out of these. So you could do like a pincushion with just the rabbit. You could do just that paisley scissor fob. I actually picked up 2 more work basket patterns too. They were really appealing. They were, I didn't bring them up here. They had puns on them. They were vegetable puns. They were really cute. So I love it. So I'll be stitching more on this. My idea is to do the swan one right next to it. So let me open up this fabric. This is a small, I keep a lot of, in my fabric stash, I keep a lot of 12 by 17 sized fabrics because that seems to be the perfect size for like medium stitching. Okay, so here's what I've got so far on this side. So then I'm going to do swan roundel on this side. It'll fit just fine. My what I can't decide is, do I want to get this? Do I want to use the same color? I'm probably going to run out. I don't know if I'll even have enough on this spool to do the one motif. I do have another color. This is Sulky 4003. I don't know what it's called, like what the name of it is. It's very similar to Poppy. It's just got some yellow woven into. So I haven't used that yet. So I'm thinking that's what I might do for the second, for the swan roundel that'll go here. I'm very, very happy. I love stitching on this. This has been so enjoyable to stitch on. I can't wait to get those two. I might even start that. Maybe I'll even start the swan one because I'm so curious to see what they look like together. I might even start the swan one today and see what it looks like. So those were my new starts. And you know what? That's all I got to talk about today because I don't have any plan. I haven't even thought about plans for next month yet. I don't know. Stitch whatever I want, whenever I want to. We've had some really hot days this month. We had a few 100-degree days, so there's been a lot of stitching time, and I don't know. We'll have to see what July brings us. I'm going to get this video processing. I'm going to go out and check on the caterpillar and make sure it's still out there, and start fixing some lunch. I got a new lasagna recipe I'm going to try out today, so I'm going to get that together. And that's about it. Thanks for sticking around and watching as always. I really appreciate you. Thank you for leaving comments and for connecting and spending this time talking cross stitch with me. I love to do that, and I love to share that with you. And I hope you're finding some stitching time. I hope you're finding some simple pleasures that you're enjoying too. Feel free to share those with me. I love hearing about what makes people happy and what brings you joy. And what are your mindfulness moments that are keeping you calm these days? Because I need all the ideas I can get. And I'll be back in July, at the end of July, and we'll just see what's been happening since now. Thanks, everybody. Have a good day.